Welcome to the Big Time Sports Show.
Big Time Sports Show.
The Big Time Sports Show, a look at sports in and around the Tuscarawas Valley.
Big Time Sports Show. Sports Show.
The Big Time Sports Show is brought to you exclusively by Ferris Chevrolet Buick Cadillac Toyota. For a great deal on a new or used car, truck, van, or SUV, see a Ferris wheel. Ferris on the Wabash in New Philadelphia.
Think Ferris.
Now, here are your Big Time Sports Guys.
Big Time Sports Guys.
Taking care of sports business is the mellow tones of Cjharlie Jones and the voice of the Akron Zips, Joe Dunn.
And good evening, high school sports fans, and welcome again to another edition of Big Time Sports. I'm the mellow tones of Cjharlie Jones, and tonight in the house, as promised, we are going to bring you two very special guests, and we're going to go from our usual, bring in the kids, talk to the coaches routine. We're going to talk about items around the state of Ohio involving our high school athletes, okay? And I've got two of those people here that are deeply involved with those projects. And first, let me introduce the commissioner of the Ohio High School Athletic Association. This is Commissioner Dan Ross. And Dan, welcome back, my friend, not only to Stark County, but also to the Big Time Sports Show.
Good evening, Cjharlie, and it's good to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
How have you been, Dan, since the last time we taped the show together?
We have been well. Just keeping very, very busy, and this is a very, very busy time of the year with the tournaments and all the winter sports. So it's been go for many people.
You're in town for a couple of days with the state swimming finals going on over here at the Natatorium.
We have swimming and diving going on here this weekend, and that's always a tremendous event and one of the better places in Ohio to be able to house that.
Now, Dan, let's take a couple moments here, and hopefully brief moments, and introduce our other guest. Now, would you like to stay at the podium and introduce this young man, or do you want me to have that honor?
I don't know whether anyone could even match the way you do your introductions, Cjharlie, so I think I'll turn that one over to you.
All right, Dan, thank you very much. And our other guest here, last but certainly not least, okay, is Steve Craig. And Steve is not only the legal counsel for the Ohio High School Athletic Association, but a prominent Stark County attorney. And Steve, I got to tell you the same thing, my friend. Welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks, Cjharlie. I think I missed last year's taping of it, but a pleasure being back, and always a pleasure to sit next to the mellow tones.
Well, Dan and I talked about this. You missed it last year. Okay, we were going to replace you with somebody, okay, maybe from the truck stop down the street here, you know, somebody that could take your, but we didn't. We figured we'd let you come back.
Yeah, well, it's, tough.
It is. All right, now, let's do this, guys. Let's get right at it. We got a lot of issues to talk about here. A lot of people out there want to hear what you guys have to say. So, Dan, why don't you step up to the plate first, and let's talk about a referenda item that the schools are going to vote on in May regarding age limitation regulation, because that's a hot topic around the state.
Well, for many of the viewers, they may not realize that our rules and regulations are voted on by our school principals. And so every year, the first 2 weeks in May, our principals have the opportunity to vote on any of the modifications or changes in our bylaws, which is our constitution and bylaws, which our schools put into place for us to adhere to. One of those that they will be voting on this spring will be the modification in the age limitation. Currently, that age limitation, if you were born before August 1st and you are 19, you're ineligible. If you're born August 1st or after and you're 19, you are eligible. And so what we are going to have our schools vote on is that any 19-year-old would have the opportunity to participate in high school sports up until the time they turn 20. And I know that there's been issues with that. We hear that all the time about you already have 19-year-olds that are playing. You have an arbitrary date in there that you are using. But we currently do not have 20-year-olds playing, and so this would permit any of the 19-year-olds to play up until the time that they turn 20. Now, we've also have another state that has interjected something that we probably need to at least have some conversation about before this goes to vote, and we have another state that permits 19-year-olds, but does not permit a 19-year-old to play in a season in which they would turn 20. Because this would prevent that. Okay, that youngster's been on the team all the way up through, and it's the day before the tournament start, and you turn 20 that day, and now you're not eligible to play. So they wouldn't be participating in any of the season and of which they turn 20. So that one probably still in the mix a little bit. We have to have some conversation with our board, but the way that it is currently written, it's the day you turn 20, you're ineligible.
Steve, your comment, does this provide any or bring about any legal challenges to you and your staff regarding this change if it passes?
Well, I mean, the legal challenges are there regardless of where you draw the line. Actually, I think it probably would minimize legal challenges for a number of reasons. Number one is there really aren't that many 20-year-olds in high school, period. But minimizes in the sense that it makes perfect sense, if you ask me. I mean, like Dr. Ross mentioned, right now we have any number of 19-year-olds playing. The logic, other than you need to draw the line somewhere, of August 1, and we've been using the example of you could have twins born 10 minutes apart, one born on July 31st and the other one born on August 1st, hit that midnight cutoff or whatever, and one's eligible and one's not. And as far-fetched as that may seem, it happens. Whether they're separated by 10 minutes or 10 days, the logic behind it seems to be flawed, and there are a number of people that have a hard time putting their minds around why is it okay, especially if that 19-year-old is all of 5'4" and 110 pounds wringing wet,
Yeah.
So I think it's a good move, and I'm glad Dr. Ross mentioned that your viewing audience can get an insight into just how some of these the process of these rules and how they're developed, number one, and number two, to re-emphasize the fact that it isn't Dr. Ross or Steve Craig or staff or anybody like that imposes these rules. It's the membership ultimately that decides.
Yeah. Good point, because a lot of people out there, the common, mom and dad think, okay, that Dan and his staff at the OHSAA make all the rules and all the regulations, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Dan. That's not true. Now to wrap up, go ahead.
I was going to say, grabbing onto that piece, sitting in an appeal, when you're sitting there and there's a mother and a father and that 5'8", 125-pound wringing wet youngster that's sitting there who was born on July 31st.
Yeah.
And they're saying, he just wants the opportunity to play. And the 8-semester rule still stays in place. Mm-hmm. But just with that piece saying, okay, because you were born 4 hours too early, 18 and a half years ago, you're now ineligible.
The other part that took place that kind of led the way to opening the door for this change in the age rule was, again, through the referendum process last year, the member schools put in play a semester rule at the middle school level.
Okay.
So now you only have 4 semesters of eligibility at middle school, 8 semesters of eligibility. So the idea that a parent might redshirt their child at middle school in order to gain an extra year of maturity and athletic advantages, and that has been kind of minimized as well by the referendum that the member schools put in last year with the middle school semester piece.
All right, guys, I guess we'll wait until May, till when the votes come in, and see which direction the high school principals want to go with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
They'll have the opportunity to weigh in on it, which they weigh in on all these, and we will, in early April, walk through with them what, why, and wherefore, and then we'll see what happens.
All right, guys, I got to go to another break. So with that, we have in the house, we have Dan Ross with the Ohio High School Athletic Association and Steve Craig, the legal counsel for the OHSAA. We'll be back with more after you watch this from Ferris Chevrolet, Buick Cadillac, Toyota.
The Big Time Sports Show with Charlie and Joe will be back right after this word from Ferris Chevrolet, Buick Cadillac, Toyota.
Toyota has the deals, and Ferris can help you get there. Hi, this is Pat Ferris from the all-new Ferris Toyota. Right now, you can drive towards spring in your choice of a new Toyota Camry, RAV4, or Prius for just $249 a month, and that includes 2 years of free maintenance. All of these great vehicles for just $249 a month and no maintenance costs. Bring us your trade and choose a new Camry, RAV4, or Prius for just $249 a month at the all-new Ferris Toyota on the Wabash in New Philadelphia.
You gotta go to Bob and Pete's.
Welcome to Bob and Pete's Floors showroom. This is where you'll find an extensive selection of styles and colors with the most up-to-date designs and fashions at the price that's right for you. Whether it's carpet, hardwood, tiles, a laminate floor cover, or countertops, you'll find what you need at Bob and Pete's Floors. Bob and Pete's Floors. Make your feet happy feet.
You gotta go to Bob and Pete's for happy feet.
When the door of opportunity opens, what do you see? A landscape to pursue your passion and a rewarding career. A university with $120 million in student awards to lower the cost of education. A place where work opportunities during college lead to great jobs.
Akron has opened my eyes to so many opportunities.
New career options.
Akron gave me the motivation to make my dreams come true.
The University of Akron, where you get the greatest lifetime return on investment of any Northeast Ohio public university.
And we are back once again to the Big Time Sports Show. Steve Craig and Dan Ross in the studio with old mellow tones. And Commissioner Ross, right out of the box on this segment, I got to ask you a question. Football finals were held at the Ohio State University this year. Next year, they're going back to the Ohio State University. A couple people up here in Stark County might want to know what's going to happen with that after next year.
Well, when we did the contract, the first 2 years of that 4-year contract, the finals were here in Stark County.
Mm-hmm.
The last 2 years, it would be at Ohio State. The intent was then to return back to Stark County, but there's a construction process going on over at Fawcett with the Hall of Fame Village concept that will be there.
Big project.
And so we will probably be staying an extra year at Ohio State while that construction finishes, and then it would be our intent to make that recommendation to the board that when that construction process is completed, that we would cycle back to Stark County.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Commissioner Ross. Now, Steve, you know I shoot straight from the hip. I lay my cards face up. So I'm going to throw you, Steve, a curveball here. Okay? that sounds a little bit like this. Okay? We had a mercy rule in high school football. Okay? This is a two-part question for you, and then I'm sure Dan's going to follow up with it. How did it go this year in high school football? And what's the possibility of some sort of mercy rule in high school basketball? Your comments, please.
Well, as to the latter question, I'm going to defer to Dr. Ross on that.
That's not how I prefaced it.
I know you didn't, but you're the one that, as a straight shooter, threw me a curveball.
Right,
so,
that's true. Yeah.
As to football, I think it worked out fine. And again, my role, if I have any role at all in any of that, is really what's best for the safety and well-being of the participants. And I think the mercy rule and those situations in a contest that lend to a mercy rule also lend to situations where student athletes or the participants can become injured.
Correct.
And I think it's from that perspective, minimizing those chances of injury, especially with what's gone on in terms of concussion and concussion litigation and those sort of things, that it's a good thing. And I think it worked out well.
Okay. Dan, you want to step in here and cover our good friend Steve?
Well, the mercy rule, from everything that we know from the fall, was handled very well by the officials, handled very well by the coaches. The response has been from teams that were involved in Mercy games that were winning, and teams that were involved in Mercy games that were on the short end of that stick, very, very positive. The treatment of young people that were going through that, as Steve mentioned, sometimes when you're up 40 or 50 points, you'll have somebody take a cheap shot, or
Correct.
You'll have altercations that happen at the end of the ball game because of frustration. We're not aware of any situation that occurred that warranted any kind of discipline as a result of that not being addressed properly. The feedback is very, very positive. I received one negative email during the course of the season.
But there's always one, though. There's always one.
Well, there's always usually
More than one.
there's a whole lot more than one.
Right.
But I received one, and it was after the very first week, and it was from a coach who said, I'm not going to be able to get all my players in and give them the amount of time that I would like to give them. And actually, that really wasn't the focus of this piece. There's other ways that you can certainly do that. But moving into the second question, about 2 weeks ago, I was at a basketball game, and I got kind of cornered by a group of
Imagine that. Dan Ross
coaches.
getting cornered, Steve. Where were you? Where were you when this happened?
I needed
low in the regular season.
Oh, okay. All right.
But it was a group of officials and coaches, and they were their first words out, oh my gosh, the Mercy rule, what a great thing. It certainly worked out really, really well. It kept down an awful lot of issues that we normally kind of run into at the end of ball games like that. Why don't you do that for basketball? I mean, it was the very next piece is why. So my first response was, okay, where would you draw that line? Because, and a lot of comment about that, because there are states that use Mercy rules for basketball. They're anywhere between 30 and 40 points, and they do a running clock almost exactly like that. And so we will probably at least have some conversation about that piece. There hasn't been a big push like we received for the football, and part of that's probably because of as Steve mentioned, with the injury and the concussion piece that is probably a little bit more prevalent in the football, especially when you have games that may be a little bit out of control. And so the basketball would be something that would probably be interesting to have a conversation about. But as far as I know, there's nothing on the radar screen to make that piece work.
All right, so that'll be an item of discussion between the OHSAA and the high school principals.
And the principals, but the Coaches Association. I'd love to hear from them, because there was an article in the Columbus Dispatch this past week about that, this week, which is the Dispatch piece, and the coaches were mixed, and there was coaches that were even, I've been on both sides of this. I understand this, and I think it's a great idea. The other one was, I don't want to necessarily change the game. So we'll see. We'll have some conversation about it.
All right, guys, got to go to another break. Stay right there, because when we come back, we are going to talk about another hot topic here with Mr. Craig and Mr. Ross. We'll be back after you watch this from Ferris Chevrolet, Buick Cadillac, Toyota.
The Big Time Sports Show with Charlie and Joe will be back right after this word from Ferris Chevrolet, Buick Cadillac, Toyota.
Toyota has the deals, and Ferris can help you get there. Hi, this is Pat Ferris from the all-new Ferris Toyota. Right now, you can drive towards spring in your choice of a new Toyota Camry, RAV4, or Prius for just $249 a month, and that includes 2 years of free maintenance. All of these great vehicles for just $249 a month and no maintenance costs. Bring us your trade and choose a new Camry, RAV4, or Prius for just $249 a month at the all-new Ferris Toyota on the Wabash in New Philadelphia.
There are hospitals, there are health systems, but there's nothing quite like this. The Altman system means A-class care. All of the services and care you need together. All of the most expert caregivers together. All of this joins together, and together with you, to lead our community to improved health. Welcome to the shape of advanced healthcare. At Altman, healthier together.
Thinking about enlarging your home's living space with a screened room, 3 or 4 season room, or maybe a patio cover? You owe it to yourself to contact the outdoor living experts at Canton Aluminum. Serving Northeast Ohio for over 60 years, Canton Aluminum takes pride in delivering excellent customer service. For a free estimate, call Canton Aluminum today at 330-4 456-0021 or visit our website at CantonAluminum.com.
Back once again to the Big Time Sports Show. We've got Mr. Craig and Mr. Ross in the house. We are talking about items facing high school student athletes around the state of Ohio. And guys, we talked before we took that last break, about a very important item. Now, let me segue right into this thing called concussions. There's a lot of concern out there, not only at the high school level, but also now at the pro level, about concussions to the guys playing football. A lot of lawsuits in the funnel. Dan, you want to lead off with this concussion topic?
Sure. The concussion piece is a piece we've been dealing with probably in our schools for the last 6-7 years, putting pieces in place to deal with concussions, especially in football. Probably when it started, most of the focus was on football, but I think after that point in time, it's settled into all sports, and it's kind of a surprise, and I think it was a surprise to me when the concussion literature started and the research started out, when you start looking at, okay, football is probably the number one sport for concussions in high school. Do you know what number 2 is?
No.
Girls soccer.
Girls soccer.
And that's not just in Ohio, that's across the country. Okay. And so it's kind of interesting that you start to look and you say, okay, we always have a trainer at football and we're looking at football, but there are other sports that the concussion piece needs to be looked at and addressed, not just in the football scenario. But we looked at starting to put pieces in place to help identify, to have officials pull youngsters who are showing signs and symptoms off the field. We may have been the first state in the country to have the officials do that, but we've been working on this piece for years and years and years, and it was probably inevitable that somewhere along the line that you would start with, because of the effects of those concussions, schools or state associations or the NFL or the NCAA, because I think they've all been involved in lawsuits depending on how they dealt with those issues. And Steve may want to speak to the lawsuit issue with that piece.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, Steve. I understand that other states has been lawsuits filed, okay, from parents regarding their kids sustaining concussions playing not only football but other sports.
That's true, and right now there's a class action lawsuit pending in Illinois, just got started, and the class has not been certified yet, so it might be premature to call it class action technically, but it's a big litigation, and again, it's an effort to have the schools or the organizers of interscholastic athletics through their state associations, such as the OHSAA, to do more. The education piece on this and is really huge, and it's as the repository, if you will, of the research and the education, the information that's available out there. The state association then becomes responsible to disseminate that information to the member schools, to parents, to the contest officials, all the different pieces that need to be brought into the fold and brought up to speed on what there is to know about concussion and the significance of that, and the importance of getting proper rest and treatment if concussed, the importance of getting a youngster out of the game to minimize exposure to secondary impact and those sort of things. Dr. Roskin talked about the cognitive reactions and responses. What do you do with that youngster who on Friday night was concussed and on Saturday has taken the ACT? Or returning on Monday to the regular classroom? Involving the entire education community, teachers and counselors in that process. We talk about the concussion on Friday at games. Guess what? Concussions don't just happen during the contest, they happen in practices.
Sure.
And those sort of things. So the education part, and Dr. Ross and his staff are to be commended. They've been out front on this. The OHSAA developed and passed protocol for this that 2 years later the state legislature embraced and mandated through state law. But the education part is just so critical, and we've got a long way. Everybody that's a stakeholder in this has a long way to go on that.
All right, guys, I got to call quick timeout, okay? I got to call 30-second timeout because we got to take a break. We'll be back to wrap things up regarding concussions with the Ohio High School Athletic Association after you watch this from Ferris Chevrolet, Buick Cadillac, Toyota.
The Big Time Sports Show with Charlie and Joe will be back right after this word from Ferris Chevrolet, Buick Cadillac, Toyota.
Toyota has the deals, and Ferris can help you get there. Hi, this is Pat Ferris from the all-new Ferris Toyota. Right now, you can drive towards spring in your choice of a new Toyota Camry, RAV4, or Prius for just $249 a month, and that includes 2 years of free maintenance. All of these great vehicles for just $249 a month and no maintenance costs. Bring us your trade and choose a new Camry, RAV4, or Prius for just $249 a month at the all-new Ferris Toyota on the Wabash in New Philadelphia.
When buying or selling a home, the first thing is to make the call.
McIntyre Realty.
Our marketing plan speaks for itself. We get results with over 700 sales last year.
So, Molly and Colton, have you made a decision yet? Yes, we have. I don't know, Molly. That's a lot of money. But it's the one I want.
Buying a home is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make. We take that seriously. One of every 4 homes sold is listed by McIntyre Realty. Make the call to McIntyre Realty, the sign that sells.
1, 2, 3. Look out! We're back! We're 7th grade! Cheer the best! That's right! This is our year! Step back and watch! You're looking at the best! We're loud and proud! We're Big Time Sports! Charlie's his name, and that's been said, the one and only Big Time Sports! Go Big Time Sports!
And welcome back to the Big Time Sports Show. We've got just a short time remaining here. I'm going to ask Dr. Ross to wrap up this hot topic called concussions. Dan, I'll give you 2 minutes, my friend.
As Steve mentioned, the education piece of this is critical. And the research with concussions is changing. It's almost changing daily with the treatments and the pieces that they're asking you to consider now as you're making sure that you do your education piece. One of the things probably that for every one of us that have been involved in schools that are learning more about the concussions is when the concussion first occurs, you're really, really worried about the health and safety of that youngster.
Sure.
But the part that sometimes you don't think about is when they return to school. And this is probably the biggest part of the research that has changed, because nobody thought about that kid coming back in the classroom when he was in a basketball game the night before and takes a shot to the head, and he's in the classroom the next day. It's like, okay, he's there. But the pieces with the cerebral pieces of a concussion that come back, that things that you do sometimes in that classroom may be worse than having the youngster the day after concussion go out and run around the track all morning.
That's right.
The pieces with being on the computer, that and going in and watching a movie or a video. That piece with the rapid eye movement is probably one of the worst things that you could possibly do. So one of the things that we've been working with our schools, and we believe everybody should be probably very, very keenly aware, is the cognitive pieces that occur with a youngster when they have a concussion. Yes, your doctor is going to say these are the kind of things we want you to get rest. We want you to keep it quiet. But when you come back to school, don't sit in the study hall next to the music room.
Right.
Don't sit down in the lunchroom when it's going crazy during lunchtime, because those are the kind of things that are going to impede your path to getting back and getting healthy.
Dr. Ross, Steve Craig, I want to thank you both for joining us this evening on Big Time Sports. I'll tell you what, we've got a lot of more stuff to cover here, so why don't you guys come back next week? Will you come back next week and join old Mellow Tones on the Big Time Sports Show, guys?
Be happy to do that.
We can make that work.
All right, so next week, join us again on Big Time Sports. Good night, everybody.